We had our 31st annual Business Golf Classic this week. On Monday, it was at Berkeley Hall, and certainly want to give a shout out to Adam Kushner and his team there for not only a great round of golf, but also his staff did a fabulous job. The golf course was in wonderful shape. Another sold out event, and ServPro served as our presenting sponsor for the 16th straight year. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the RBC Heritage, and we're delighted to have one of our former champions with us, Wesley Bryan, who won the 2017 RBC Heritage, and also just the week before last came in number 15 in the Dominican, so playing well, coming into Hilton Head. And after that win in 2017, I think it's important to note that Wesley rose to number 37 in the world. So let's welcome Wesley. And Wesley's certainly a South Carolinian and played at the University of South Carolina. And we're looking forward to welcoming him back to Hilton Head Island next week. Wesley, thanks for joining us today.
What's up, Mr. Miles? How are you?
I'm doing great. You're looking relaxed and like you're ready to go today.
I am. I'm here at the Country Club of Lexington, about to tee it up with yours truly, Willie Mudball, Kilometers Miles, here in about 30 minutes.
All right, great. So coming in next week, tell us where your mind is and why you like coming to Hilton Head Island and what's special besides winning the RBC Heritage.
I think my favorite part of this upcoming week is it has to be just knowing that all the family and friends are going to be there, and it's a place obviously I'm comfortable at golf course wise, but just knowing that we're going to have, basically my whole side of the family, my wife's whole side of the family, we're going to be renting houses and having some good meals together, and just a time to hang out with family and friends for sure.
So how we know you're coming off a couple injuries and playing pretty well. Tell us how you feel going into it.
Starting to feel a little bit better. I struggled a little bit to start the year, and the golf game I would say was in a really good spot, I thought, and then it wasn't translating on the golf course, and then put in a lot of hours over the last couple months or so, and I feel like it's in a pretty good spot. A couple weeks ago was the first week with your son on the bag, full-time, or I guess part-time, full-time. And I would say the vibes were high. I'm excited to get this partnership up and rolling. And I would say the game is about as good as it's been in the last year or so. And I'm as healthy as I've been, and I'm excited to tee it up.
Yeah, that's great. Talk to us a little bit about what a pre-round looks like for you. Our listeners, I'm sure, would like to hear what you do before you actually get out there and get on the tee box at number one.
Man, I'll tell you, that's changed a lot over the years. I would say the day I turned 30 about is when the body started to shut down and needed to pay a little bit more attention to the pre-round routine. I remember in high school, you just roll out of the car and go straight to the first tee and play your high school matches like that. And now it's every tee time I'm up 3 hours or so before, just to make sure the body's at least awake and at least firing on all cylinders mentally, at least to the capacity that I have, which isn't extremely high. And then from the physical stuff that starts about 2 hours prior, I'll spend about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour in the gym / training room, getting stretched out and getting the body all warmed up and ready to go. And then the warm up on the golf course starts about 55 minutes before. I usually putt for about 15 to 20 minutes, hit balls for 25 to 30 minutes, and stroll on over to the first tee. And really, I would say the biggest part of the warm up for me, and I would say it's probably across the board, the most important is that 5 minutes leading up to it, when you're walking to the tee, preparing yourself mentally for all the things that could come, whether you get off to a good start, bad start. It's not going to affect your strategy or game plan. It's not going to affect any shot that you would attempt to hit or try to hit. It's really just going through a little bit of that. Like every football team will have their first series of kind of premeditated plays, and mine's kind of like you're premeditating like your first few holes, and seeing a couple different scenarios. So that 5 minutes before is really important mentally.
Wesley, we're looking forward to welcoming you back. We know you'll have a big following all week, and thanks for being with us. We'll let you get running. I know you need to get out and play, but again, thanks so much for being with us.
All right, Mr. Miles, thanks for having me on. I promise there's going to be no gambling that goes on today. I promise.
Okay, good. Promise. All right.
Y'all have a good one.
All right. See you. Well, that was Wesley Bryan, and he's certainly looking forward to getting back to Hilton Head Island. I also had the opportunity recently to chat with last year's champion, Stuart Sink, and you'll find that interview in the chat box there that you can go in and listen to later on. And Stuart's a great champion as well and has done a lot for Hilton Head Island, and we look forward to seeing him next week. But we're going to shift gears now from golf to really what's happening around the globe, and cybersecurity is in the news, and we're very, very fortunate today to have an expert in that field that's with us, that's going to speak to us just a little bit about that. I will tell you that he has a hard stop at 9:45. He has to go basically across the street from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to the White House for a meeting there at 10 o'clock. And so our speaker this morning, he's the Vice President of Cyber Intelligence and Supply Chain Security for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He works in the arenas of homeland and international security with a focus on cybersecurity. Vince also serves on the National Homeland Security Consortium and helps corporations, businesses of all sizes understand cybersecurity threats and how to protect against them. Vince, welcome, and we're glad to have you and look forward to hearing what you can tell us about what's going on in the world and cybersecurity wise.
Well, good morning, Bill. Just a quick thumbs up if you can hear me all right.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Well, pleasure to be with you and your members this morning. As was mentioned, my name is Vince Fossey. I'm a VP for cyber policy here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And as many of you have witnessed over the past few weeks, and certainly since the beginning of the new year, cybersecurity is a top business issue in the context of the current war in Ukraine. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what we are seeing on the cyber threat side from nation state actors and their proxies, and how that is how we are internalizing the lessons learned from what is happening on the battle space through cyber in Ukraine. And then I'll talk a little bit about what that should mean and how businesses here in the United States should internalize what's going on in the for their organizations. And then I'll open up for a few questions if members have those as well. So in both the days and the weeks leading up to the Russian ground invasion in Ukraine, a whole host of cyber attacks were propagated by Russia and many of their state-sponsored adversaries against entities primarily within the territorial geography of Ukraine. And those came in the forms of a number of different kind of adversarial campaigns. The first, and probably something that you are seeing play out on the media every day, are very significant information and influence operations. And those are primarily being propagated by both sides to advance their geopolitical national security imperatives. But they are things like the episode on Snake Island, where Ukrainian National Guard defenders ultimately succumb to Russian invaders, but through very low-tech cyber operations, that message was carried forth across the globe, and that became widely remembered. Russian agents very famously are very noteworthy for their information and influence operations, but generally these are low-level operations, something to sow misinformation, disinformation, distrust in government, and there's a variety of resources out there. The things that are really getting, and things that people like me stay up at night worried about, are some of the more destructive operations. And those would be evidenced by some of the wiper attacks, some of the malware attacks on Ukrainian either financial services, government institutions, healthcare institutions, both in lead up to the war and in the days and the weeks that have since followed. So these sorts of destructive attacks will generally come from known Russian actors, whether they are Russian SVR, GRU, and FSB. Those are the Russian intelligence, military intelligence, and domestic intelligence agencies. They have long been known for their adversarial campaigns in Ukraine, dating back to 2014 and 2015, with the injection of the NotPetya malware into their power grid, disrupting the supply of electricity to the nation and communication services for a prolonged period of time. It also had worldwide spillover effects, and not only in the shipping industry, but in the maritime shipping industry, but also in the air shipping industry as well. So destructive attacks have been a really keen focus for us, and analyzing different kinds of malware, and what that means, and internalizing what that means. And then the last kind of attacks that have been evidenced throughout the conflict in Ukraine are disruptive attacks, and those are primarily either DDoS, distributed denial of service attacks, or similar kind of website takedowns, website defacements. This is especially prolific on government websites that are attempting to get kind of the message out, the Ukrainian message out. So what does that mean for businesses? A couple of points. One, I think we are still in a kind of wait and see mode. For many of us in the cyber community, we're really interested why those Russian agencies, SVR, GRU, FSB, didn't engage in a more offensive cyber campaign in lead up to in prepping the battle space for a ground invasion of Ukraine. The cyber conflict thus far can be characterized as relatively low level, and not overly disruptive or destructive in nature. For the most part, that's a broad generalization, but for the most part, the information warfare operations have been contained relatively to Ukraine. Now, going forward, as sanctions have the ability to take effect, and those effects are felt within the Russian Federation, it is well within the capabilities, capacity of the Russian Federation and its instruments of national power to go offensive and to conduct, as they call it, information warfare against certain types of entities. So the White House in particular has been evolving its messaging on how U.S. businesses should respond to the cyber threat. They, whether that is through the president and his principal deputy national security advisor for cyber and emerging tech, have very recently made statements from the White House press briefing room saying that evolving intelligence shows that Russia is preparing to launch cyber attacks against U.S. entities or allied entities. Primarily, that will focus on those businesses and organizations that are either a part of the sanctions regime, think oil and natural gas, financial services, or those that are involved in the conduct of the war in Ukraine, and that would be principally defense manufacturing. Those three sectors in particular should be, as the government likes to say, shields up against the cyber threat. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So in addition to just making statements from the press briefing room, the White House and the federal agencies, whether that is the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency, the FBI, the Department of Energy, and a variety of different intelligence agencies, have really lowered the levels for sharing classified threat information with U.S. businesses. This has gone back as far as November, and maybe even a little bit earlier. to CEOs of some of the major electricity generation companies within the United States, or those that have been subject to attempts at Russian intrusions. It's important, really important to remember that the statements from the White House a couple of weeks ago do not indicate a single specific threat, action, intrusion, or attempted intrusion by one of Russia's most capable cyber actors. There isn't that level of threat yet. However, we know as far back as, certainly last fall, but as open source will tell you, as far back as I think the Office of the Director of National Intelligence Worldwide Threat Assessment in 2018, there have been repeated attempts by Russia to establish, maintain presence in our industrial networks, and particularly that's in the electricity sector. I think one thing that we preach to all U.S. businesses at the corporate level and through all of our interactions is that if there are disruptions in essential services, whether that's electricity, communications, energy, they are for the most part temporary, time limited, and recoverable. Not to say that these things don't happen, but they do happen, like most crimes do. And that for the vast majority of cyber attacks do not result in a loss of human life or injury to a person or physical harm. That is a really important thing to keep in mind. Other recommendations that we have for U.S. businesses from a corporate level and from a corporate executive level, we have kind of several key questions that senior managers should be asking their teams. What are our most important assets and how are we protecting them? What layers of protection have we put in place around our most important systems or data sets? How do we know if we have been breached? How do we detect if an intrusion has occurred? What are our response plans in the event of an incident? Do we have an incident response firm that's on retainer? Do we have outside or inside counsel that is familiar with what our obligations are, our regulatory obligations are? Do we have connection with either our local law enforcement or federal law enforcement officials? And then in the event of an incident, what is the responsibility of our board of directors? What are our business recovery plans? And is our current investment good enough to meet the threat? We like to say that organizations, if they haven't been doing some of these things now, it might be too late if you're a victim of a Russian-sponsored cyber intrusion now. Finally, and I'll get to my close and invite some questions from Bill and the members here. For those that are technical experts, we recommend a series of protections. Many of these are laid out in on a public website, cisa.gov/shields-up. That is kind of the one-stop shop for both threat information, intelligence sharing, and also defensive measures. But certainly, on the technical side, deployment of multi-factor authentication, encryption and multi-factor authentication is just a two-factor way for either access to information technology, desktops, laptops, and such, but also for operational technology. Some of that can be done either at scale or at all at one time. Encryption is a huge technological advantage. So even if data is stolen, it is unusable. Deployment of either antivirus, anti-malware, and certainly spam filtering, so that email is reviewed judiciously as it's coming into a network. CISA likes to talk a lot about the importance of information sharing. So organizations should lower the thresholds. We encourage organizations to lower the thresholds for reporting information to the government, whether that is either through your ISAC, through counsel, through an incident response firm, or more directly through your local FBI, Secret Service, and most importantly for corporate for corporations employ and empower security teams. So with that, Bill, maybe I'll turn it back over to you, sir, and invite questions.
All right, Vince, thank you so much. Yes, we do have questions, several from our members. The first one's coming from Tyler, and Tyler's asking, are the Russians able to get communications from the outside via social media?
So as I think many folks have known, Russia has entered a period of digital isolation, and some of the chamber member companies have totally have very much either stopped operations within the Russian Federation, and those could be organizations like Facebook, Instagram, Meta in particular, have ceased operations, and in some cases, President Putin has banned them. Are there social media affiliates? Yes, that have access to those within Russia. Yes, Telegram in particular is a very popular state-sponsored messaging app that allows some presence within Russia. But for the most part, Russia has really entered a period of digital isolation.
Vince, would you go ahead just one more time and repeat the Shields Up website so we can put a link on our chat box here for that?
Yep, absolutely. So www.cisa, that's CISA.gov/shields-up.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Laura, and Laura's asking, are you surprised by the low level of cyber attacks at this point?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think one thing that you could broadly characterize about the ground invasion of Ukraine by Russia is the surprise by which it captured the commanders on the ground. It didn't seem like, from our observations, that it was a well established and well disciplined campaign. So, in traditional military, in traditional U.S. doctrine, there is essentially a prepping of the battlefield, and that would include both information operations, reconnaissance operations, and establishing things like air superiority before a ground invasion is conducted. It's surprising in some ways, but I think also demonstrates some of the President Putin's thinking that this would have been a short-term conflict, and that his national security objective of removing President Zelensky would have been achieved in the first 24 and 72 hours. There's also some technical reasons why we haven't seen some of those more destructive attacks happen. For example, Ukraine is built on a great deal of Soviet infrastructure, Soviet ICT infrastructure. We know that forward deployed Russian military units are using Russian telecom and power supplies for their own lines of communication. So by disabling that and turning that off, they're thereby disrupting their own military's ability to communicate and move in this battle space. So there's a number of different reasons that we think that we assess some confidence why things have unfolded the way that they have, but it's definitely surprising.
All right, thank you for that answer. Our next question is coming from Trish, and Trish says, Russia's military capability may have been overestimated. Do you believe their cyber abilities are as well?
Absolutely not. The Russian Federation is a highly sophisticated cyber adversary. And they have long been able to, so they conduct a number of different campaigns for a host of different reasons. Last year might have been defined by the year of ransomware, the disruption of Colonial Pipeline by DarkSide, and Rebels' disruption of Kaseya and JBS Foods. Both of those organizations, DarkSide and REvil, are Russian state-sponsored criminal syndicates that operate within the Russian Federation at the tacit approval of President Putin. The deployment of ransomware is a relatively simple cyber attack, but it yields them a lot of money, and in particular, with some of the payouts that organizations have to pay out in order to decrypt data. On the most mature and sophisticated side, we look at campaigns propagated by organizations like APT28 or APT29, which are Russian SVR and GRU units, and things like SolarWinds. SolarWinds was the active exploitation of a software company that does a very tactical back-end network management service in tens of thousands of different organizations around the world. What SVR did in that campaign was inject malware such that they could maintain presence in a very clandestine way and be able to, for espionage purposes, collect and exfiltrate data from a host of different critical infrastructure and government agencies. This is a very apex level supply chain security intrusion that the Russians took years to engineer, deploy, and maintain. A very sophisticated campaign.
Vince, another question coming from Sam, and Sam is asking, how important was Elon Musk's movement of Starlink over the Ukraine?
Tough one. Tough one for me to answer. Absolutely. In terms of when we look at, it's tough for us to answer that question because satellite-based communications have the benefit of both being independent of, but also dependent on ground-based systems. So yes, they provide a satellite-based services. However, they run on an open network. So in some ways, yes, it provides an important internet service. However, it also provided a mechanism by which Russian units could use that open information to target Ukrainians. So, SpaceX's Starlink is one piece of the communications puzzle for Ukraine. Viasat is another global satellite provider. Iridium is another global satellite provider that provides encrypted handsets to customers all over the world. L3 Harris. The thing that we are seeing in Ukraine more than anything is that there is a surge of U.S. and Western allied support in terms of both lethal supplies, but also non-lethal supplies as well. And that's everything from the handsets to ground-based systems for communications and anything in between. So we know that supplies are running low. So if you work for any of those companies, we hope that the supply chains are improving and more can get into the field faster.
Vince, we'll ask you one more question, then I know you have to run. And this is coming from Jennifer. And Jennifer is asking, do you anticipate any Russian cyber attacks on U.S.? And how will that impact Americans? And that's got to be a short answer because I know you got to run.
Yeah, the next meeting might tee that one up for a better answer. I think independent of the conflict in Ukraine, Russian actors will continue to target U.S. infrastructure for a number of different reasons. And they predate this conflict. But I think that the general answer is, if within kind of my community, that there's a consensus that that we should expect some kind of attack, some kind of cyber-enabled operations against U.S. institutions. Now, what that will look like and what U.S. resilience will look like, I think it really just depends on the campaign. Could they go for a supply chain attack? Absolutely. Could they task their proxies like Revel and DarkSide and Lockbit to go after U.S. institutions and hold them at risk in ransomware campaigns? Absolutely. Could there be targeting of the grid? Yes and no. But I think that what our message to Americans is, employer security teams do some of those basics, multi-factor, backup data, encrypt data, and do some of those, and you really buy down your risk, especially for small businesses. And also, trust that if there is another disruption to either oil and natural gas or electricity, that there is a very significant and mature capability within the U.S. government and those firms to bring services back quickly, and that these are not prolonged outages. So that's how I might offer a response.
Vince, it's time to put on your robe and run across the street and represent business.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you. We appreciate it being with us.
Appreciate y'all. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. All right. How about that? Certainly a wealth of information, and we're so glad that he could be with us. And if you're not familiar where the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is, it's literally right across the street from the White House. And so he just needs to walk out of his office there, and really 2 blocks down, I think it is, and right there's the White House. So incredible knowledge, and we're delighted to have him with us. I also want to mention to our listeners that if you're a small business out there, you're a member of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce through the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. It's a relationship that we have with them, and if you're not taking advantage of that, I'd certainly encourage you to, and reach out to our team here at the Chamber to learn more about that. All right, we're going to move on now, and is Senator Graham? Senator Graham is he on yet? Do we know? Okay, I don't think Senator Graham is on yet, so we're going to move on, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Turtle Patrol program. And we all know that spring break is here. Our visitors here, they're enjoying the island, and we're proud to partner with the town along with the island's Turtle Patrol program to spread the word about preserving and protecting our island ecosystem. So turtle nesting season begins on May 1st, and here to tell us more about that is the island, our resident expert really, and head of the program, marine biologist, Amber Kuhn. Amber, thank you, and what can you share with us about the turtles today? We don't hear you. We don't have your volume yet.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
Good morning. It's good to see you guys. We are definitely gearing up for our sea turtle season, which we will start May 1st, as you said. Every morning we'll go out at 5 a.m. on the beach and look for those sea turtle tracks and start marking them. We always hope to have at least 300 nests on the beach, and they'll be nesting through August. And then hatching through October. So it's a 6-month program, but most of the work happens now. We're planning all of our programs, our education and outreach programs. And one of the big ones that we're planning pretty soon here is on April 25th at USCB. And we are actually asking for help from the community, primarily the people who deal with the visitors with a face-to-face encounter. So you've got waitresses and bartenders and concierge, activities directors and property management people who are managing rental properties on the beach, that sort of thing. We want to ask them for help. We want them to know a little bit about what's going on the beach, so that when they get the questions, what's that triangle with the orange sign? They have a little bit of information to impart. And beach etiquette is really important for us because we have a lot of visitors, as you know. And it's important for them coming from places that aren't near the coast to know that their impact is really significant. They, if they leave holes unfilled on the beach, for example, and this is an ordinance that went into effect in November 2019, the town of Hilton Head, you're not allowed to leave a hole unfilled. It's really hard to enforce that because we have 14 miles of beach. but it only takes a hole that's less than a foot deep to entrap a hatchling that's trying to make its
Good
way
morning,
down.
everyone. I have Senator Graham if now works.
That works.
Can we pause?
Okay, one second.
Turtles are important. We'll be right back to you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for being flexible with us.
No problem.
Senator Graham, you're connected.
Hello,
All right.
good morning.
Hello, Senator. This is Bill Miles in Hilton Head.
Hey, Bill.
Thanks
Yes,
for joining
sir.
us. Thanks for joining us today. Know that you're on the run. We'd just like to have an update on whether it's Ukraine, Washington, Supreme Court justices. Got a lot to talk about.
Okay. Well, let's start with I wish I were in Hilton Head because every other place you named is not so good. So the tournament will be coming up in a few weeks, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Well, I'll try to get there. I always, love watching it and being there. So we'll vote on the Supreme Court nomination probably Thursday or Friday. She'll make it. I preferred Michelle Childs from South Carolina. I think she would have been in the liberal camp, but a little more balanced. I think Judge Jackson was picked because they see in her somebody who's really, I'll be honest with you, going to be an activist judge, not very pro-business at all. And that's what happens when you lose an election, but she's a decent person, qualified, she's got a lot to be proud of in her life. It's a bridge too far for me. If we take back the Senate in 2022, we'll have a chance to have say about judges we don't today because we haven't had a situation since we changed the rule requiring a simple majority to pick a judge where you have a party, Senate in the hands of one party and the president in the hands of others, and that will create a new territory for us, a new country almost. We got to figure out how to handle that. It looks like right now, if the election were held next Tuesday, it'd be a blowout. The border is completely broken. Repealing the Title 42 authority to deport people based on a COVID threat, over 1 million people were deported, turned right around and sent back. Once you take that tool out of the toolbox, we're just going to be flooded in the southern border. And I worry that terrorists will come across and kill a bunch of us because of Afghanistan. Ukraine, the Ukrainians have just fought like tigers. I had dinner with the ambassador last night. Putin is he's a war criminal on steroids. I don't know how we ever deal with him normally again. But if you had fighters and tanks and more sophisticated missile systems, I think the Ukrainians could break the Russian army. It's going to be a slugfest. But if Putin loses in this misadventure, then it makes it less likely that China will take Taiwan. I'm going to Taiwan next week to fly the flag. We just can't be focused on one part of the world. You got 3 bad actors at the same time. You got in Asia, China is rattling the saber all over Asia, and that's a big market for us. You got the map of Europe being redrawn by this invasion of Putin into the Ukraine, and you got the nuclear threat from Iran, and the Mideast is very much on edge. I just got back from Israel, so if this new agreement to allow money to go to the Ayatollah for their nuclear program, the JCPO round 2, the Arabs and the Israelis are not going to like it very much, and I worry that we're going to get in a conflict between Israel and Iran because they want to build a bomb, not a peaceful nuclear power program. So I've never seen the world this unstable, quite frankly, maybe since the 1930s. People have sized up the Biden administration, and they're taking advantage. And if we can get Ukraine right, if we can, slap Putin around and break his army, then that becomes a defining moment for world order. If he gets away with this, Putin, he's still standing and stronger and in power than all the laws that we passed and all the things we say about rule of law world kind of dissipates. We've got a bill to make us more competitive with China, to look inward, to rebuild our supply chain. That's a big bipartisan effort. The effort to regulate social media. Facebook and Twitter did not allow the Hunter Biden story from the New York Post to be disseminated right before the election. It turns out the laptop was actually accurate, and we got to deal with these social media companies. If you're a conservative, and liberals too, but particularly conservatives, they can basically shut you out. So, Bill, I really don't see anything much happening other than a China competes bill, which could be very good for our economy. I voted for the infrastructure bill, which will be helpful to your part of the world. It was a bipartisan bill. And between now and November, I don't see a whole lot happening. The budget was good for the military. The Air Base in Beaufort got a good plus up. I'm back in the earmarking business, so I can take some of the money in the budget and spend it on projects back home, things that I think are worthy. So with that, I'll take a few questions, but it does look like we're going to have a very strong November for Republicans, and hopefully we'll come up with a positive agenda to run on. I think it's not just enough to attack the Biden administration. I think you actually have to have something you're for, and I'm working on that. So with that, I'll take some questions.
All right, Senator. Thank you very much. And our first question is coming from Sam. And Sam is asking, are you surprised by the Russian army's lack of success?
Yes. To be honest with you, they told us this thing would be over in 4 days. I sort of bought what we were being sold. Russia's got they put a lot of money in the army. Never underestimate the desire of people to fight for their freedom, but the answer is yes. And what's lacking on the ground to turn the tide of battle is that you need to go on offense. Some of the Russian units are basically withdrawing. They don't like killing their cousins. So if the Ukrainians had more fighter jets, they could reach out and hit targets. They need more tanks, to combat the Russian infantry, and more sophisticated missile systems. We're in day like 40 almost now, and the weapons flowing in is at a snail's pace. These switchblade drones or suicide drones, they call them kamikaze drones. They can fly over a target. They can descend upon the target and hit it with all kind of bad stuff. They can tear up a tank. They can tear up a ship. So the more of those things we can get in the hands of the Ukrainians, I really do believe the weather's getting warmer. The tanks and vehicles can't get off the main highways, and that's going to present a problem for the Russians. They're consolidating their forces in the east, and I think this can only end with Putin having a black eye, and the Ukrainians want security guarantees like we have with Australia and Japan from the United States, Great Britain, and France, the three nuclear powers. And I think if there is an end to this war through negotiation, we need to give them those guarantees, because if we don't, Putin will come right back at this. He wants to do more than the Ukraine. But if we could up the cost by giving them security guarantees, I think we'd keep Putin in a box. But I'm surprised at how poor the Russian army has done. Very proud of the Ukrainians, and I'm all in to help. And Putin's got to go. The guy's a war criminal and needs to be prosecuted.
All right, Senator, the next question is coming from TK, and TK is asking, what are your thoughts on lowering inflation for Americans?
It's never going to happen until we change our energy policy. If we get in charge of this place, the House and the Senate, we'll have legislation to make drilling easier and fracking easier, and see what Democrats do. Biden, as a candidate, declared war on fossil fuels. So we're now looking to Venezuela. We're looking to OPEC, Saudi Arabia, to produce more oil, because of COVID sort of moving on, demand is up. Biden stopped the Keystone Pipeline. He's made it harder to get leases. He's taken the tax advantages away from oil companies to do exploration. Listen, for every you drill 10 holes, you may find oil in one. If they can't, write off business costs of trying to do exploration, they're going to do less of it. So no matter what you hear from the Biden administration, they made it harder to get oil and gas developed here in America. I'm working with some Democrats on sort of a gas bridge to Europe, send natural gas from the United States over to Germany to replace Russian supply. That'd be good for our economy, and I think it'd be a blow to Russia. But inflation in the energy area can only change when we increase our supply. The food supply chain is going to be hurt. Ukraine is the fourth largest producer of corn, the fifth largest producer of wheat in the world. They're basically war torn, can't produce. So I don't see an end in sight until we change our energy policies and deal with the supply chain. It's just too damn hard to create a job in America. You can't find workers. That's the biggest problem. I don't know what you're paying your workforce, but if you're a worker right now, you're in the driver's seat because it's hard to find people to show up and work 40 hours. So wages are going up.
Senator, that's a great lead into our next question and really our final question for you because I know you need to run. But this is coming from Debbie, and Debbie is saying workforce shortages are a critical issue not only in South Carolina but around the country. And do you see any relief in this area anytime soon?
Well, the relief, Debbie, would come from restructuring our benefit package so that you don't make more not to work than to work. During COVID, we had a problem. Businesses had to shut down. The PPP program kept a lot of you from going bankrupt. And I don't mind helping people who are out of work at no fault of their own, but the unemployment package of $924 a week was more than most people were making, and we're still having a problem with that, getting people back into the workforce. But in the area of nurses, we're having a critical nurses shortage. A lot of baby boom nurses are retiring, teachers, but just finding help in the service industry. The bottom line is we're going to need a rational immigration system where we can bring people in, H-2H, H-2B visas where you can get people to help out at Kiwa. But, just finding native-born labor is going to get harder, not easier. And the only solution to this is to automate. Some of these businesses are going to get automated. Artificial intelligence will take over a lot of space, but there's just some jobs that machines can't do. So I've always been for immigration reform to create a flow of workers into our economy. Once you can't find somebody here at home to do the job, that's a win-win. And that's going to only happen when you don't incentivize future illegal immigration. So right now we're stuck. And we just need, as a country, to deal with the fact we have a declining population. And I hear it everywhere. The number one problem I hear when I go home, if you own a business, from manufacturing to a restaurant, is finding people to work. And the only solution I know is just to build a larger pool of workers. And that's going to take training our kids better, getting them motivated to work, changing the benefit package, but also bringing in people from the outside that are willing to work.
All right, Senator, thank you so much for joining us as you're so kind to do periodically, and keep up the good work. And we hope to see you soon at the RBC Heritage.
Yeah, I hope I can make it. If I can, I'll be in town soon. But you live in a special part of the world, and hopefully this infrastructure bill will help 17 and some other needs. And, you're growing very rapidly, and the military base, the Marine Corps Air Station, and the military community is very important to me and to that part of South Carolina. So I'll always be in there pitching for those guys and gals. Thanks a bunch, and keep your chin up. I'm hoping COVID will get back to normal here pretty soon. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Senator. Have a great day. All right, we're going to shift gears now back to our Turtle Watch program and Amber Kuhn. Amber, thanks for your patience, and when the senator jumped on there, thank you for pausing, and we're looking forward to hearing the rest of your story.
Bill, if it was the first time that environment got bumped for politics, I would be surprised, but it's never the case. So that's okay. I'm used to it. But what I was saying has to do with the community. And I know that there's nothing that we in Hilton Head can really do about Ukraine. There's definitely something we can do about our turtle population and preserving that on Hilton Head and our ecology. That's super important to us because we live here. So anyone that is working in the industry that involves tourism, and it could be you own a coffee shop or you have a hotel, anyone that is face-to-face with the visitors this season needs to come to this event that we have on April 25th. It's at USCB on April 25th. It's at 4 to 6 p.m. And what we're going to do there is just give simple answers to simple questions. There's the flyer there on the screen. We have gotten grants from PD Cares and Beaufort County ATAX to put this on with food and beverage and entertainment. But what we really are trying to do is to introduce all of the ordinances that have been passed recently dealing with holes, personal property left on the beach, which is confiscated in June, July, August, and September after sunset. Rules that you might not know about that are meant to help the sea turtle population that's nesting. The picture that you also see is Stumpy. This is a turtle that we first recorded with DNA in 2012. And it wasn't nesting on Hilton Head, but it laid 4 to 6 nests. I can't remember exactly, but it was fine. It was normal. The event, thank you, is at USCB on Hilton Head. Very convenient for all of you. So Stumpy, sea turtles nest every 3rd year, so they take a 2-year break. But this one went missing for 4 years, and everyone thought it was gone. And then it showed up in 2017 on Hilton Head Beach without a flipper. So that's what they dig with. Stumpy did try to dig a nest in 2017. It wasn't very successful. She came back in 2020. I just happened to be on the beach twice to encounter her and help her dig her nest. After 25 years of doing this, this is the first time I've ever had this opportunity. We put this nest together, the 2 of us in the darkness, and covered it back up, and Stumpy slowly made her way back to the water. The nest hatched. It was 93% successful. All of the hatchlings went to the home that was being rented behind her nest. So after all of that effort, and this turtle who already struggles, but can't even dig a nest by herself, now has just no progeny for that reason. And if we can just get the word out about lights out after 10 p.m., all these rules that we have on Hilton Head to preserve our wildlife, that would be so helpful. We've tried turtle talks, we have clings everywhere, we have doormats, we have so much to offer in the way of education, but it just does not seem to be working. So we are reaching out to the community. We want you to please help us to spread the word. People just don't know what their impact is, and it's huge. Sea turtles are worldwide. We are responsible for the ones on our island. And if you guys have any questions about this event or want to know a little bit more, please contact us. Website is seaturtlepatrolhhi.org. And please let us know, because we need all the participation we can get. We would like everybody, particularly on the south end, to contact us and let us know how you would be able to help us and what we can provide for you to be helpful as well. Are there any questions for me?
Yes. Well, thank you for that update. And there are. The first one is coming from Julie, and Julie is asking, how does Hilton Head compare to other nearby beaches when it comes to turtle nesting?
We have the biggest territory, but the density per square mile or per mile is not near what it should be. But that's simply because we have a lot of activity on the beach, and turtles like dark and quiet, and they can hear and they can see. So we have a lot of visitors that are on the beach all night long. 300 nests is nothing to balk at. We do a lot of work to preserve those, but it's important to get all of the hatchlings to the water. And this is where we have our problem on Hilton Head with the lights. If people would just know the ordinances and obey them, then we would have a very big success and possibly return in 30 years when they come back to nest. So it's super important. It's been almost 30 years for me, so I'll be seeing some of the hatchlings that I released in the late 90s. So it's very important, and we get maybe 20 new recruits. We've never exceeded 20 new recruits each season, but we do get over 20 strandings, which are dead turtles hit by boats, entanglement and fishing line, ingestion of plastic, things like this. So we need your help.
All right, next one's coming from Kevin, and Kevin is asking, how do I sign up to volunteer?
We have a sister organization called Turtle Trackers. It was developed in 2016 to do everything that we don't have time to do. Everything that we do on the beach, the 18 members of Sea Turtle Patrol are permitted by the state agency, Department of Natural Resources. So we have specific training, and I'm responsible for all of those members and the guidelines that they have to work within. Turtle Trackers is our army of volunteers, almost 500 members with 6 chapters in every beachfront community that go out each night and put the beach to bed. So they fill holes, they pick up trash, they talk to visitors on the beach and try to do what I'm asking the hospitality industry to do. We need more than 500 people, believe it or not, to control what's going on our beach. Town of Hilton Head pays contractors all but 5 hours a day to pick up trash. And that would be between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 or 7 a.m. So it is an issue. We are trying very hard to use education and communication to control what's going on our beach, as more and more people come here and may not know what it's like to live on the coast and what we would like to keep seeing, which is the beauty of our natural environment. So Turtle Trackers is the way to go. You have to start with Turtle Trackers, and then when Turtle Trackers, you've participated with all of their beach sweeps and they're putting the beach to bed in their property management committees and the contact that they have with the community. Then when positions open up on Sea Turtle Patrol, that's where we go to our Turtle Tracker group to look for very impassioned individuals that can help us.
All right, thank you. We have information on our destination website, which is hiltonheadisland.org, a campaign helping to inform and educate visitors. And then, Amber, I think it would be great if you would repeat the 2 websites again that you have, so our listeners can write those down and check yours.
Sea Turtle Patrol, HHI.org, and there's a link to Turtle Trackers on our website. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, which people find more convenient sometimes. And there's ways to donate if you can't participate. Donating 100% of the donations go to beach operations. And we would just like to thank the town for their support with ATAX and our marketing things that are for education to supplement what we're trying to do with the community. And there are several ways to contact us. If you just type in Sea Turtle Patrol Hilton Head, you should find us and Turtle Trackers.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. And as I like to say that as the health of our sea turtles go, is also the health of our destination and keeping our environment the way it needs to be. And so thank you for all you do for all the years. And we're very, very appreciative of your leadership, Amber.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys as well. Thank you for helping out on your website and supporting us.
Very good. All right. Well, as we come to close today, I want to remind everyone we have the Plaid Party tonight. That'll go from 5:30 to 7 at USCB, and it's sponsored by Airmark. So if you haven't registered yet, I would encourage you to do so. We have a few spaces left, and it looks like we're going to have a great crowd, and there'll be trustees there and a couple other surprises that goes along with Plaid Party. And as we sign off, thank you again for dialing in, and we appreciate you. We appreciate your support of the chamber, and have a great day. We'll see you at the RBC Heritage next week.